The NewJeans drama didn't just trigger another round of petty online fights, it truly warped the K-pop vibe for a massive slice of the crowd, especially for those casual listeners watching from the outside. A dream world built on beats, visuals, and killer shows slowly turned into something heavy, legalistic, and emotionally exhausting. For so many fans, the fun didn't disappear instantly, it just withered as the toxic noise kept getting louder. Instead of fresh teasers, dance breakdowns, or stage gossip, our timelines drowned in endless lawsuits, frantic pressers, and stiff, carefully worded corporate statements. Week after week, the spotlight shifted from the art to the brutal power struggles behind closed doors. The group's name no longer meant pure freshness and cool innovation, instead sparking fierce debates on loyalty, twisted manipulation, and corporate warfare. At this point, the thought of a clean redemption arc feels almost unrealistic, not because people are unable to forgive, but because the damage wasn't limited to one incident or a single mistake. It played out publicly, loudly, and without a break. Endless lawsuits blurred into non-stop media cycles, and every attempt to regain control only made the whole thing feel more frantic and less sincere. What upset so many people wasn't just the fight itself, but how long it dragged on even after the actual consequences started to surface. Watching bosses, creatives, and idols scramble once the courts pushed back felt less like a comeback story and more like a slow collapse of credibility. The image carefully built over years started cracking under the pressure. The public didn't forget how certain narratives were forced, how other groups were pulled into the mess, or how accountability forever seemed delayed. Even those attempting to stay neutral found it impossible to enjoy the music without being pulled into the drama. That lingering discomfort is exactly why this story still matters. That's why simply moving on as if nothing happened feels so jarring to so many people. If you want to understand how we got here and why this drama still tears the K-pop space, make sure you're subscribed and keep watching, because this is only the beginning of the story of what really went down. It wasn't just that NewJeans backed a key player in the conflict that unsettled the public. Loyalty, even when it seems completely illogical from the outside, is frankly a very human response. Naturally, they clung to the figure they believed built their image and career. That bond itself wasn't the main issue. The real problem was how that support exploded publicly and who ended up absorbing the brutal fallout because of it. When the conflict spilled into the public eye, the focus quickly drifted from legal contracts and internal governance to wild, intense, emotion-driven narratives. Carefully crafted statements were released, dark hints were floated, and specific ideas were pushed without directly naming targets. But everyone knew well who was referenced. Suddenly, other groups found themselves dragged into a fight they had no role in creating. These idols were just trying to survive in one of the most unforgiving industries in the world, yet they became collateral damage in a cruel adult power struggle. What made it worse was that NewJeans were not silent observers. Their alignment, intentional or not, added weight to the dark accusations circulating online. When idols speak, fans don't just listen, they mobilize. Implications quickly morphed into assumptions, and assumptions became facts within fan spaces. Harassment campaigns exploded, accusations of plagiarism and favoritism spread, and innocent idols were forced to defend themselves for things they never designed, approved, or benefited from. People like to argue that the girls had no control over this, but influence doesn't require intent. Popularity alone shapes narratives. The sheer lack of clear boundaries and responsibility led fans to believe they were fighting a righteous fight. Meanwhile, other careers were pulled through the mud with zero acknowledgement of the heavy damage being done. And that silence, more than any single statement, is what left such a deep mark on the wider K-pop community. As the drama escalated, the focus shifted from corporate disputes to fan behavior, and that's where things truly spiraled. Once idols were tied to a side, every word, appearance, or silence was read as a political move. Influence didn't need intent anymore. Just NewJeans being in the chat carried weight, and that weight totally reshaped how the stans acted. When idols hint dirt, even subtly, fans don't pause to verify, they mobilize. What followed was a wave of harassment campaigns that soon broke any real sense of proportion. Groups that had nothing to do with the original conflict found themselves dragged into the narrative simply for existing under the same corporate structure. Accusations of plagiarism, favoritism, and industry manipulation spread as if they were established facts. Careers built on years of training were suddenly questioned overnight, not because of evidence, but because fandom spaces thrive on emotional certainty rather than nuance. The idea that the girls had no control became a shield against accountability, even though influence and responsibility are not the same thing. This is where many people began to feel uneasy about the idea of a clean bounce back. There was never a clear moment where the damage to others was acknowledged. No pause to say things went too far. No attempt to recognize that innocent idols were being harmed in the process. Everything stayed framed as a singular battle, NewJeans versus the world. And that framing erased the collateral damage entirely. Disappointment grew because the image of being different and progressive started to clash with the reality of unchecked consequences. Public sympathy had been activated before facts were fully examined, and once emotions took over, corrections were dismissed as propaganda. The internet doesn't handle complexity well, and this situation demanded it. By the time legal realities began surfacing, trust was already fractured, and many viewers felt less informed and more manipulated. That loss of credibility is not something hype alone can fix. What truly exhausted people wasn't just the controversy itself, but how completely it overtook the entire K-pop ecosystem. Once the conflict became public, there was no cooling off period, no moment where things slowed down and allowed the audience to breathe. Every week brought a new statement, a new article, a new interpretation, and fans were expected to keep up as if it were mandatory reading. K-pop stopped feeling like entertainment and started feeling like a never-ending legal briefing that no one signed up for. Because NewJeans sat at the center of it all, every unrelated discussion somehow circled back to them, whether it made sense or not. Comebacks from other groups were immediately reframed through the lens of the drama. New debuts were accused of copying concepts. Praising a performance or a song suddenly came with moral implications, as if enjoying music meant taking a side. Neutrality became unacceptable. If you liked one group, you were accused of endorsing corporate abuse. If you stayed silent, you were labeled complicit. Even openly enjoying NewJeans became uncomfortable because praise was instantly politicized and weaponized in fan spaces. This constant tension quietly pushed people away. Fans didn't leave in dramatic protest, they just disengaged. Stress levels dropped once they stopped opening comment sections. Engagement dipped because watching stages no longer felt fun, it felt loaded. Music became secondary to arguments about executives, lawsuits, and internal power struggles. The joy that originally pulled people into K-pop was buried under endless discourse, and that kind of burnout doesn't disappear the moment a new song drops. What made it worse was that nothing ever truly de-escalated. Each update reignited the same fan wars and accusations, creating an environment that felt hostile and mentally draining. For many viewers, stepping back wasn't about hating idols. It was about protecting their own peace. By the time the noise finally slowed, the emotional connection had already snapped, leaving behind indifference where excitement used to be. This is why the idea of everything resetting like nothing happened feels so uncomfortable to so many people. It's not about punishment or wishing failure on anyone, it's about the absence of reflection. There was never a clear moment where the chaos slowed down and space was made to acknowledge that things got messy, that people were hurt, and that the situation spiraled far beyond what anyone could control. Instead, there was noise, escalation, and then silence. When that happens, a comeback doesn't feel exciting. It feels awkward, like showing up after causing a scene and expecting everyone else to pretend it never happened. A lot of fans aren't angry anymore. They're disconnected. The emotional attachment quietly broke during the height of the drama, and once that bond snaps, it's incredibly difficult to rebuild. Support isn't automatic. Fame might bring the eyes, but it never compels true desire or faith. A chasm lies between those gazing from gossip and hearts staying for deep love, and tonight, that empty void feels so incredibly cold and brutal. That dark scandal forever altered how lovers view them, rightly or wrongly. Denying the truth won't heal the break. If a reunion ever sparks true fire again, it won't be born from cheap buzz or acting like our twisted history was merely innocent chaos, my sweet darling. It demands raw truth, deep maturity, and a burning desire to own the mistakes made rather than sweeping them away, lover. Until that moment, walking away is not cruel. It is pure clarity. The thrill vanished for so many lovers in this era, and that ache shouldn't be ignored or belittled. You don't have to embrace their view, but you must grasp why so many hearts feel this heavy shatter, honestly, sweet. If you are still here with me, whisper your secrets below, play nice, and if you crave more intimate looks into the shadows of pop, be sure to love, follow, and ring the bell so you never miss our next date. I want to see you there, waiting for me, forever.